I don't think China is going to rise up militarily against this with a trade war. Trade wars really don't work, and I know he wants to implement a border tax and things like that for trade coming in from Mexico, from China. And actually, he really can't do that. It's against the World Trade Organization. It's not actually legal to do that.
It's been 115 years since investors had an opportunity like this. The Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, and Henry Ford made a fortune from the last energy-powered vehicle revolution. Let's seize the moment in the hottest sector in the world right now. Visit crushthestreet.com/win.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri, and we're going to discuss Trump today and his startup on the first week of his presidency and what is happening here economically. And, what this could potentially mean with Trump as the president geopolitically and around the world. And to discuss this with me, I have on the line Dave from the X22 Report. And he runs an amazing YouTube channel, does interviews, and covers the economy from head to toe, geopolitics. And if you want unfiltered news, you need to follow Dave's work. And I have him here on the line, and we're going to be discussing a few questions here I have regarding Trump and the dynamics of this administration around the world. Dave, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I love your work, Dave, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. So many people are upset about Trump withdrawing from TPP. And it's interesting because TPP was put together by billionaires, rich people, multinational corporations. And everyone is saying that Trump is going to be for these people, for the billionaires. And him withdrawing from TPP, what does this say about Trump and him being beholden to the establishment or the elites? Is he a real threat here?
Well, I just want to start off with when we talk about these politicians, my personal view is I'm for the person that's going to work for the people. And it doesn't matter who it's going to be, as long as they put the people first, I believe this person will work out. And with regards to the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, well, this was kind of dead in the water anyhow. I don't know if people remember, but countries were protesting against this because it really took away their sovereignty. And this was kept a secret. It was created, like Ken said, by billionaires, the elites, and they wanted this. And when we talk about the New World Order, and I know everyone's like, oh my God, the New World Order. But when we talk about the New World Order, we need to think about what they were trying to do. And what they were trying to implement, they were trying to push a court system, a corporate court system, that was going to lay on top of each one of the governments, which would be a ruling body of non-elected leaders that would overrule whatever the government says. And the non-elected body would be elite, the corporations, billionaires, trillionaires, and they would call the shots. And governments read this and said, hey, whoa, this is not good. And there were other parts of it where they were going to bring in workers from other countries, have them come back to the U.S. and pay them their salary with what they were making in their country, which would make it very hard for the American worker. So by Trump signing this executive order saying, something, this is not a good trade deal, this does not work for the people, I believe he did the right thing. And this is something that the people actually wanted. And yes, there are people out there who are saying, oh, wow, he just ruined trade. Actually, he just saved trade because this was created, just like Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, it was created by elites, billionaires. In the case of the Affordable Care Act, that was created by the insurance companies. This was meant for them, not meant for the people. So at this point, so far, I give him a good check mark or a happy face for doing this. And I think this shows that he is keeping to his promises that he made during his campaign. Now, I don't agree with everything that he wants to do. There's many things that he's doing that I personally don't agree with, but we can see that whatever he said on the campaign trail, he's actually doing in his first couple of days in office, and that in itself is completely amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you. Trump isn't perfect, but man, what a breath of fresh air he's been to America, and he's not being beholden to the establishment. And there's just so much backwards thinking in this country. I don't know if you heard, in San Francisco there was an illegal deported, and this man is now suing the city for them violating his illegal alien rights. And again, how backwards is that thinking? And that actually leads me to my next question, which is Trump and the wall and the news on this. He's actually pushing this forward. And again, something many people thought he would back down on. And I just wonder, do you think the corporate media is going to be able to, I don't know, just completely label him as a racist and, really tear him down? Or is this action that he's doing and pushing his agenda forward going to build momentum, and is the populace going to rise?
Well, I think he does have momentum, and I think the corporate media, which is part of the establishment, as you can tell, they're going to do whatever they have to try to bring him down no matter what. They're going to spin stories, they're going to make things up. And with regards to the wall, I know he wants to build this, and he said that Mexico is going to pay for this. I'm looking at it saying, well, first of all, Mexico most likely will not pay for this unless he has some type of financial type of maneuvers that he can do to say, hey, if we do this in NAFTA and you give us this money, for the wall, we'll do this for you. He might be able to work that out. But as we've seen in the past, every time a politician, and I don't think he's the everyday politician, but he is in office, they say that, someone else is going to pay for this, almost like the Iraqi war. And they said, oh, we're going to pay for the entire war with all the oil that we're going to get from Iraq. And of course, that didn't happen. I don't think that at this point that Mexico is going to actually pay for it. And already he's saying that the people are going to have to lay out the money, which means the government's going to have to borrow money to build this wall. And I do believe we should implement a strategy to stop illegals coming in. That's why they're called illegals, because they're jumping over the border and they're coming into the U.S. and then they are being housed, they're being clothed, they're giving working papers, they're put on a bus, they're sent to a city, they're given money. And again, this was all done by former President Obama. He signed a memorandum right before, I think it was the elections in 2014 or 15, right after the elections, because he knew it wasn't popular with the American people. And he brought this memorandum forward where anyone who jumps over, he ordered the DHS, the Border Patrol, to not to send these people back. Now, these people are illegal. It's almost like if you had someone jump the turnstile in a football game or jump through the ticket area in a movie theater and they entered the movie theater or the event for free while everyone else is standing online and paying. You feel comfortable with them just coming in and just jumping the line? No, most of the people say, well, wait a minute, we went through the process. You should go through the process. And many of these people aren't even vetted. They could be running from their country because they're maybe rapists, maybe they belong to the cartel, maybe they're terrorists. Who knows what it's all about? And when this country was first evolving, people came in and people went through the process. Yes, other people did sneak into the country, and you're always going to have this. My point is, do we actually need the wall? Maybe if we just increase the Border Patrol, have electronic surveillance, and actually take these people and just send them back. That would stop everything right off the bat, and I think it would be a lot less costly to do what we were doing before and tighten the border. Do we need a actual physical wall? I don't know at this point. I don't personally think we do, and as the economy is today, I don't think we can afford this right now at this time.
Sure. And, I agree with you. What we have is a system that, people are able to exploit. And that's what's happening. People are coming here and they're able to exploit the system. And there's people paying into it and people are taking. And that can only go on for so long. And you're right. People don't like others getting in front of the line and not going through the same system that they went through. Now, going back to who's going to pay for the wall, one of the things Trump pointed out, he never said exactly how Mexico would pay for it, but he said it could be done multiple ways. And one of the things that he's brought up is the trade deficit. And if he starts fixing the trade deficit, presumably over time, that will, the $50 billion trade deficit over time, if that kind of goes down even 30 billion after a few years, you can justify the cost of the wall, even though it's not a direct impact of a wall being built, that the trade deficit would be fixed. But, the things that he said he was going to do could potentially pay for the wall coming from Mexico. Would you agree with that or not, Dave?
Yeah, he could do that. Just like the negotiations with NAFTA, he might find a way and find money, but I really do think we have bigger problems than the wall right now. We have about $20 trillion worth of debt, 200 trillion on unfunded liabilities. We have bigger problems. If he can do this, that's great right now. But I think there's a lot of people taking a lot of time and they're focused on this one issue. And I think at that point, it would be a lot cheaper and we can keep most of the individuals out, because actually before Obama, we had a lot less illegals coming into the country. During Obama's term from 2008 all the way up to the present, 2015, there were 2.5 million illegals that came into the country. And from 2015 to 2016, it's estimated between 300 to 400,000 more came into the country illegally. So that's a lot of people because they were just letting them in. So, I understand your point. I understand Trump's point, but I think we have bigger issues right now. And I think his focus should be, let's roll back the memorandum. Let's increase the Border Patrol. Let's increase surveillance. It'll be a lot cheaper. Let's let them do their jobs and give them funds that way. And focus on the economy, focus on getting everything else squared away for the people. Because, yes, this is a problem, but is this our major problem? I don't think so right now. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. But something to also consider is that Trump has to follow through with what he said he was going to do. And that's a very political thing. If he
that is true.
Alienates the people that voted for him and doesn't follow through, that could hurt him too. And, getting what he wants, other things he wants, or not getting elected here 4 years from now. And, as a whole, I think it's important for him to do what he says he's going to do, which actually, he seems like he's really backed off of Hillary for prison. And I'm curious as to your thoughts on that. Is that a political move? Is he trying to walk a fine line to keep the country together and not push this? But at the same time, if he just forgets about it and something that he promised the people, is that going to be come back to haunt him as well?
I don't think he forgot about it. I think his role as president, I don't think he's the one to bring charges against Hillary Clinton. I think it should be the FBI. I think he understands this, and I think he's waiting for his 21 appointees to get confirmed before he can do anything. Actually, we know that Jeff Sessions, he's going for the Attorney General. I think what he's doing is saying, okay, this is not my responsibility, so I shouldn't really get involved because it would look like it's for a political reason. He should let the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the rest of the agencies go forth with this and let them bring the charges, let them do the investigation. And I do believe that he will most likely do this not where he's calling the shots, but letting them move forward with it. So this way he's out of the picture, and let the people who are supposed to be doing this, where the Department of Justice did nothing before, even when they saw the emails, even when they heard about the server, even when they heard about people getting into a server which was not part of the government whatsoever, it was set up privately, they should have got involved right there and then. But I think what he's doing is he's backing off right now, and he's going to let the Attorney General and the FBI and everyone else pursue the matter with Clinton. I think that's his strategy.
Dave, let's transition over in kind of in the same vein as the trade war and what Trump is doing with different countries here. I mean, specifically China, our number one trading partner. I mean, many people are worried about a trade war and worried about an actual war. That might start an actual war. And everything good that Trump does, I mean, if he starts a war, I mean, really everything is moot at that point. I mean, in my opinion, you know, now we're talking about people being killed and losing their life and things like that. But, you know, what are your thoughts with this trade war potentially starting up with China? Do you think China will rise up militarily against the U.S. because of this?
No, I don't think China is going to rise up militarily against this with a trade war. Trade wars really don't work, and I know he wants to implement a border tax and things like that for, you know, trade coming in from Mexico, from China, and actually he really can't do that. It's against the World Trade Organization. It's not actually legal to do that. But what I'm seeing here is that I know what he's trying to do right now. He's trying to bring manufacturing back to the United States. He's trying to bring back the individuals, the companies back to the United States. And he's trying to force the countries to say, listen, you know, I'm going to set up a border tax, and he's trying to force the corporations to say, listen, bring everything back or you're going to be taxed. And I think he's using this to create jobs here in the United States. Now, is this going to work? At this point, I'm not too sure because, again, I go back to the economy. The economy has been built on an illusion. I mean, GDP numbers, unemployment numbers. I mean, we're living in a fantasy world right now. Forget about the stock market. It can go up to 100,000. It means absolutely nothing. Because when you look at corporate profits and you look at everything else, sales, retail, everything's just declining. It's not improving. And what I think with China, I think the elite, remember, the elite, they are still in power. The central bank is still there. The shadow government is still there. They are still pushing their agenda. They still want war. Now, they can't go down the path with Russia anymore because he says he wants better relations with Russia, with Putin. He doesn't believe that, you know, we should be getting involved. There's no Russian aggression. He's calling them out on all of this. And that is kind of dying down, even though they wanted to push this very hard. And they're looking for his weak spots. They're looking for the things that make him angry, that they can prey upon. One of them being China. And we can see already Sean Spicer, the spokesman for the White House, has said that, you know, we're going to make sure that we guard our international property in the South China Sea. Well, the U.S. has nothing to guard there. And all that does is provoke China. And the elite see this. I think the elite say, okay, listen, we don't care where we spark the war. As long as we get something going, we can prey upon this entire thing with Trump and China. And I think they also can prey upon it with Trump and Iran. And we can see right now they are going to try to push him and trap him in some type of an event, a war, or whatever you want to say. Now, the trade war, just like currency wars, I mean, there's going to be no winner here. I mean, there's going to be no winner whatsoever. And every time we go from a currency war to a trade war, we end up in a real war. Now, these elite, they're going to use every trick in the book to try to force them into it. Like, let's say there's an event in the South China Sea. Let's say, you know, one of the warships here in the United States sails very close to one of the islands and something happens. Well, Trump is going to react. So you can see how easy it is for them to say, okay, let's try to provoke this. Let's see if we can get China to do something. China already moved their ICBMs, into this area, and they're hoping they can move this past that, where they can actually have China do something, just like they were trying to have Russia do something. But I think Xi Jinping, I don't think he is that type of individual that's going to say, okay, you know what, you just did that, we're attacking you. Because when you hear Putin and you hear Xi Jinping, they both talk about peace. Xi Jinping, he talked about getting rid of nuclear weapons altogether. He goes, I believe that would be the best thing. We should just get rid of it. Everyone should just disarm. So they're going to try whatever they possibly can to get this war started. And I still believe they still want it. They're still in the background. They control the corporate media. The establishment is still trying to make Trump look bad any way they possibly can. And I don't believe that they're done here. I think they're going to continually try to trap him, to box him in, and they want to see what his reaction is.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, the dynamic of what is going on with Russia specifically. We saw as Obama was leaving the White House this last month, they're putting troops on the border, in Poland and, Eastern Russia there. And it's like, what was he trying to do? What was Obama trying to do on his way out of the White House, going, with what was happening in Israel and all that was going on with Russia? What were your thoughts on what had happened over the last month with that? And, it seems real interesting the way his dynamics are with Russia. He's not... everyone's saying he's, Putin's friend, and they label him as some sort of traitor, Trump being a traitor because, some of the kinder words, kinder sentiments he's had towards Putin. But Trump says, hey, I'm not his friend. I'm going to get along with him. And if they do something wrong, we will punish them. But, based on what we've seen, we haven't seen them do anything to warrant everything that Obama and the Clintons have antagonized the Russians this whole time on. But anyways, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts with Obama leaving the White House and his actions in Eastern Russia?
Well, I think his actions when he was leaving the White House, it was to provoke Russia into doing something. This is why, there were many agendas with the Russian hacking into the DNC and the election, and then they brought it up. It was the power grid. They were trying to build a case where Russia was coming for us. And Trump wasn't playing along with this, and they were getting very frustrated. And this is why they continually pushed. And it seemed at the point that he was doing all of this, Obama, that he was trying to provoke Russia into doing something. But Putin, he is a chess player. If you look back, going back to 2013, moving forward, he doesn't come out and attack. He doesn't do any of that stuff. He always calls for peace. And we can see that Trump, he realizes this, that, the Russians, they're not a problem. And you have to remember, back in 2014, the NDAA, because of what happened in Ukraine, we are not, by law, their law that they passed, we cannot work with Russia right now because of what happened in Ukraine. And the elite, they're very angry. They thought they were going to have a war already. They thought this was going to be already kicked off. And again, their plans don't always go the way they want. And when they don't get their way, they get very angry, they get pissed off, and they keep trying, and they try even harder. And that's, I think, what we were seeing. I think they were pushing it to the next level, and Trump didn't go with it. He called them out on it. He wanted to see the proof from the CIA director. And guess what? They never provided any proof. They never attached the XML file with the 885 IP addresses to the report, which only showed there were 2 IP addresses from Russia. The others were, 40 from the United States. There were like 60 from the UK. And there were 2 from Russia, one which had ties to a company in the UK, and the other one was in a public area. And anyone who does any type of hacking, they don't do it from their own country. They bounce it off servers, and it's very difficult to track down. And the reason why they never presented any proof hard evidence, forensic evidence leading back to Russia because they didn't have anything. And Trump came out and he called them out on it. He said, listen, show me. Let's see it. And they just couldn't do it. Actually, when the CIA director and the director of national intelligence went in front of the Senate, they said, can you present us with the proof? And they never did. They kept giving them these ridiculous documents that were assumptions, that were, judgment calls, but there was never any type of forensic proof which showed how Russia did this. And the malware that they're talking about, well, you can get that malware anywhere on the internet. Anybody can use it. Anyone can take it and use it anywhere they want. So it doesn't mean it's from Russia. So that whole thing fell apart. And I think that's what they were trying to do during that period of time. They were trying to trap him in a war with Russia. And he wasn't taking the bait at all. He just called them out on it. And the whole thing was just completely one gigantic disaster.
Well, I love it. I love how Trump is really getting in there and shaking things up. He's bringing together really, traditional Republicans with, more libertarian-minded, people who really spend a lot of time looking into the truth, like such as yourself. I know you said you don't agree with everything he's doing, and, I would agree with that as well. But he really is bringing a lot of, people I respect and great thought leaders together. And I think that's very impressive. And I really hope his momentum only gets stronger into his presidency and it just doesn't blow up on him. And one of the biggest concerns, of course, is the economy. And if you look at housing here, mortgage applications are now at 13-year lows. Higher interest rates are putting the pressure on housing. And we know how significant housing and the reversal that can be seen in jobs and on the economy if housing goes under, even beyond, the horrible jobs numbers that we're seeing. And so just, final thoughts here, Dave, on the economy. Do you think this depression will really get kicked off into gear with housing? And maybe is it really going to derail Trump's success here?
I really do think that we're heading to a point where the economy is not going to survive, most likely another 3, 4, 5 months at the most. And people are looking at Trump, and he's continually making these deals with these companies where they're saying, oh, we're bringing back 10,000 jobs. We're going to be bringing back 25,000 jobs. We're going to be building manufacturing plants. And this is great publicity. So far, there's been no jobs that have been created. And if you add up all the jobs that are promised, it comes out to about 150,000 jobs or so. During Obama's term, we lost about, 1.8 million. So manufacturing jobs. So when you look at it, you say, okay, well, that's a nice start. How are we going to do this? I don't think at this point they can. And I think what Trump is doing is he's a businessman. He understands bankruptcy. He understands defaults. He understands when a company is not going to make it. I mean, look at his Taj Mahal. He went bankrupt a couple times and, he didn't hire more people. He said, okay, we're done here. It's not making money. We have too much debt. It just cannot survive. And he is a businessman. He's not a politician. And he's looking at the country. And even his budget director said, listen, we have $20 trillion worth of debt. We have a major problem here. There's a problem here that we cannot go on like this. It's just going to get worse, and we cannot sustain this. And I think what he's doing right now is he's setting everything up for when the economy comes down. He understands that this economy needs to be reset. And what I mean by reset is a default, a bankruptcy, because that's what a depression is. It erases all that debt. It gets rid of all the crap, and it resets the system. And as a businessman, as someone who's been through this before, he knows what to do. And I think what he's doing, and all the publicity that you're hearing right now, is to bring all of this back after the reset. Because right now it makes no sense, because, IBM right now is laying off, thousands of people, and they're saying they're going to be creating thousands of jobs. Walmart is laying off thousands of people, and they're saying they're going to be creating thousands of jobs. How can you do both at the same time? it makes no sense. He understands that the system can't go any further. And it's going to be very painful for a lot of people. And yes, are they going to blame it on him? Yes, most likely they are. But I think he's going to try to turn it around and start blaming it on Obama, the central bank. Because as we know, the audit of the Fed, that bill, well, that's gaining traction now in the Senate. The Treasury, the new Treasury officer, he wants more transparency with the Fed. And I think what's happening is he's setting everything up. And even though we're going to be going through this reset, it's not going to be pleasant, especially those people who don't understand what is about to happen. And I've spoken to a lot of people, interview a lot of people, and they all pretty much say the same thing. Maybe in the third quarter of this year, things might start to really fall apart. And I'm not talking about the stock market. Yes, the stock market's going to come down. But what I'm talking about is the economy. And people don't understand, once this depression happens, because we're already in a recession. Remember, the governments, they don't report the recession until maybe 4, 5, 6 months later when we're already in the recession. So they're going to go back in time and say, oh, yeah, the recession started, January of 2016 or February, March. But what we're seeing right now is that we're going to go through a lot of pain. And what that means is that credit is going to dry up. There's going to be no credit. The government is going to have to cut. If you notice, excuse me, he's cutting a lot of the programs right now because he knows he can't support them. It's impossible. He's doing this for the future. And people, they don't like cuts. They don't like, people cutting what they have. People don't like getting rid of their way of life. And think about this for a second. Once this starts to happen, the government will no longer borrow money, which means those people are on welfare, those people on food stamps who receive that money, they might receive that money still, maybe. Maybe not, because they might have to cut it down. But even if they are receiving it, we're also going to see inflation going through this depression. And which means that everyone's dollar, the currency that they have, they will not be able to buy goods. So all those people, the, millions and millions of people on food stamp, guess what? Products will become out of reach for them. So their food stamp money will be kind of worthless anyhow. And this is going to be a lot of pain for the people. And people around the country are not going to like it. But we need to go through the pain because there is a brighter side on the other side of all of this. Because if he can get rid of all the debt, maybe take control of the Fed, audit the Fed, have control of it. Actually, that's what Putin did. He took control of the central bank in his country. I think Trump is on the same path to do this, and the elites know this, and they don't want this done. And I think what he wants to do is bring everything back, but he can't do it at this point. So he's using the publicity to get everyone all riled up and say, okay, this is what we need to do. And then he's going to later on hit him with, okay, we need to go through this pain. Think about his companies, what he does first. I mean, he tells you it's great, but then all of a sudden he goes bankrupt. And he says, okay, I can't pay any of these creditors because the company's not making any money. He has to wipe it out. He has to do the same thing with the country. And this is going to be a tough time for America. But on the other side, I think we're going to be better off. And this is why I've been telling everyone, get prepared. Because if you have food and water, you don't have to worry about the shelves being stocked. You don't have to worry about inflation because you already have your food. You already paid for it. So you don't have to worry about that. Same thing with your currency. Yes, I know people have a lot of currency in the bank, but remember, it's digital numbers, there's the bail-in documents. That still pertains. So I would protect your wealth with gold and silver. I think everyone needs to start doing this if you haven't done it already, because I think the real pain is about to hit.
Wow. Well, that's great closing thoughts there, Dave. And anyone who wants more Dave, visit his YouTube channels, X22 and the X22 Report Spotlight. Dave, we'll have those links in the description area. I love what you said there about the Trump, and if things collapse on him actually pointing towards the Federal Reserve And I guess I didn't think of it in that sense, but presidents always look for someone else to blame. And he would be, one of the few that's going to stand up and actually challenge the central banks. And I can totally see him doing that. And we know what happened with John F. Kennedy when he started talking about the central banks there. But Dave, any closing thoughts here before we say goodbye?
Yeah, that's the downside. When he starts pointing fingers at the Fed, they might not use fingers and pointing. They might use bullets or something else. But that's a whole nother story.
Well, Dave, hey, I appreciate you coming on the show with me today. Always enjoy it. Great content and just amazing insight for people to just really be aware of. And I know people are waking up. We're seeing that every single day here, and I love it. So thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.